Okay, welcome to 2015. Happy New Year, everybody. We're here at Fighting Chance Promotions to review 2014 and take a look ahead to 2015. So, 2014 was the first full year since Fighting Chance Promotions started.
Yeah.
Obviously, you had some highs and some lows in there. How do you feel the first year went?
I think it went really well. I think with anything that you do, any new venture that you do, you look to try and be as good as you can be. I think although the company is new, we're not new in face. Ronnie's been around forever and a day.
Yeah.
And come with that comes great contacts, great experience, and a lot of respect in the game. So I think for me, 2014 has been the year where we've provided fantastic opportunities for our fighters. I don't think Ronnie, myself, Gary, or anyone in the team could have worked any harder to create opportunities to find that. And when you create those opportunities, you're there to be shot at, because if your boys don't succeed at the top level, then they're there. But we believe in Fighting Chance was born out of an idea of getting behind fighters, giving them opportunities. This idea of everyone's on a ticket deal, everyone's got to do this, everyone's got to do that. We're very much about the fighters. It's more of a family than a business. It's not really from a business perspective. People would look at you and say, why do you do that? Because it's certainly not a financial motivator, but it's the the ethos of being in this gym, being around people, helping lads to progress has been what 2014's been about. And I think in some cases we've done exceptionally well and had some wonderful life-changing moments, and then in others it's been hard to watch and difficult to watch. But
well, I think you've done. I mean, normally when you first get things started, the plan is to plant the foundations. But I think for the first year you've done a lot more than that. I mean, if you look at the obviously different promoters, trainers in the region, and the success you've had in such a short time. I mean, the last promotion there, the one you did with Dennis Hobson, it was fantastic. I mean, myself, I give it 5 stars in boxing news. But one of the reasons for that, it wasn't just the quality of particularly the Mole Dixon fight. It was the fact that there were genuine 50-50 fights on there, genuine challenges. I mean, the home fighters and the home fans want to see the home fighters win and move on, but they don't want to see them fight after fight after fight without a challenge. It's not good for the boxers, and it's not good for the sport in the region. So putting a competitive as well as the quality that was in there with that, I mean, it's good for the boxers as well. I mean, I'm sure the Lee Mould and Craig Dixon will have learned so much from that fight compared to any of the previous fights that
and
they've
both
had.
go away with massive, even bigger followings. And I think that's where putting the show together, you put it together as a fan of boxing, you put it together as Ronnie as a manager, and you put it together as a trainer and as people who are around boxers. And being to a lot of shows and seeing a lot of different things, and the last thing you want to do is go to a show where you know the conclusion. You know that so and so's boxing Donald Duck from Latvia, and there's no point in the contest. So I think the intention for us was to get close matchups, and there's been people who have suggested that as a promoter, which we're not obviously, but as promoters, perhaps it isn't the right thing to do. But I think what we've done is we've created a following. We've created people who have come to boxing and have seen that as a spectacle. A lot of people who have commented and come back and said, well, if that's boxing, we want to come back, and that's what we want to be associated with. We want to, we recognise that in order to give our fighters opportunities, give them a fighting chance, so to speak, we've got to either put on promotions, work with promoters, or do we consider taking out a promoter's licence? All those types of things come into the mix, but ultimately the skill set comes in networking and working alongside people, working with people, and providing opportunities for the boys, which we've worked with the likes of Francis Warren, Dennis Hobson, we've worked with Mick Hennessy Sports, and we've worked with Eddie Hearn from Sky Sports. So there's not many people that can manage to get those 4 or 5 people in a room, and I don't think you ever will. But we've given our fighters those opportunities at those contests, and I think inevitably as the stable grows and as things grow, you've got to probably have a foot in. You can't have a foot in every camp because there's lots of politics that are way above our head. But I just think this year has been really, really good. I think the show itself, we wanted to put a stamp out there and say, this is, if Fighting Chance are going to do a show, this is how we're going to do a show. And again, as and when Fighting Chance do more promotions and do more shows, working alongside promoters, because at the minute we can't say that we're running a show because quite clearly we don't have a promoter's license. We're not allowed to do that. What we can do is work alongside experienced promoters and give them how we feel a show should run. Give them the architecture behind the show, the dressing of the show, and there's a lot of things that I feel we could do a lot better. But again, it's down to budget and down to putting things together, really. So
And time.
Yeah.
Obviously, certain things, the more shows you do, the more times you go through the whole media situation. You build you're almost building. Well, you're building on the foundations, really, aren't you? In terms of
definitely.
I think in terms of, I mean, obviously we're looking to head to 2015. Obviously, we've got the Big Sky show in April, but in terms of before we do that, from 2014. Let's start on a negative and we'll work the way up. What was the biggest disappointment or the biggest low point for 2014 in terms of challenges? And
I think for me the biggest, I wouldn't not necessarily say disappointment because of the result was Craig and Lee Mould. Fantastic fight. On the night, I had Craig winning 6 or 7 rounds. On review, he didn't. Still think he nicked it, but I can see how it's gone either way. So disappointed for Craig because I think on the night he boxed exceptionally well in stages, and then there was things that I think is plain for everybody to see that if he perhaps adapted or changed would have quite easily won the contest. So I think it was disappointing in terms of him not winning and not perhaps going on and then fighting for an English title and whatever. But I think it's just a step back. It's a slight knock for Craig, and he can come again. I think the beauty of it though is in Ronnie and Gary, you haven't got better trainers anyway. I put 100% faith in them, as do the boys. And for me, if you look at Ronnie's experience in the amateur game, in the pro game, what they've won. If you look at what Gary's done as an amateur, the ingredients are there. And as you say, there's a couple of things there that if Craig corrects, for me, he goes on and wins the fight very, very comfortably because I think technically he's better than Lee without a shadow of a doubt. But I think ultimately Lee, as you said, Lee was very aggressive and fair play to him because he was absolutely fantastic on the night. And
his conditioning, I mean, but you expect that with Mal's fighters.
Of course you do, and Mal does a good job there in Shields with his lads, and got big respect for what they do, and obviously Lee won the contest, and we're not disputing the result. I think. The question is, what's the biggest disappointment? I think that was the biggest disappointment because, we built Craig. We did a show with Steve Wraith. It was a Wraith promotion show, but again, Fighting Chance were the architects behind the Young Gun show, and that show was to get Craig a Masters title, to move him up the rankings because boxing's such a horrible sport that somebody like Craig, who is a fantastic boxer, won't get the opportunity because unless he sells,
he'll fight anybody as well.
Yeah. And actually, if you look at his record, over 100 amateur bouts, boxed for England, boxed for GB, won several multi-nations tournaments. Fantastic record. People don't want to box Craig Dixon because he'll beat them. Yeah. He's gone and taken 4 or 5, I think, undefeated records in Scotland, on the road, this, that and the other. So we wanted to try and put Craig into a situation where he's going to win a title, and to do that, it costs. It costs us as an organisation. But we do that because we believe in Craig, and that doesn't change. He's had a loss. Loss doesn't mean that Ronnie said that to me a few times, and loss doesn't mean the end now. Lots of fighters, unless you're Floyd Mayweather, will lose and come back. So
I think the media is partially responsible for all of the hype of the unbeaten records and things and unbeaten fighters. I mean, yes, from a fan's point of view, when you see 2 fighters,
putting the record on the line, and that was the beauty of that, because I think a lot of times fighters won't fight. One of the biggest frustrations in the Northeast, I think, is fighters will avoid each other, and it's been mooted a lot. And fair play to Lee Mould and for coming into Gateshead and going out with the win and that Northern Area title. As someone who looks after the business, that's the hardest thing to look at, really.
Yeah.
But Lee will go
Craig's
and do what he does.
up.
Of course it did, and Craig. For me, Craig has all the ingredients to win major titles, and that's why we'll continue to back him. Craig will have some time off, and as you say, we'll come back even
wiser.
Better. Yeah, wiser and even better. And Craig has the technical ability all day long to box at the elite level at his weight. But if you look at the welterweight division in Britain, it's a monster of a weight category. It's a very tough category, And I do genuinely believe Craig is up there with some of the very best, but he's got to be given those opportunities. And I think when he boxes, elite level boxes, that's when Craig boxes at his best. Because technically he's a very, very gifted boxer. So,
but again, obviously looking back at the Mould fight, you can address certain areas of his game, sort of like in between those good points and things he needs to do in between those times to stop his opponent doing the work.
And that can only make him better.
Yeah.
So I think that's the positive. And I think, let's see what happens in the future, because there's a lot more to come from Craig Dixon, and he's not one of these lads who should be put on shows at 6 and 8 and 4 rounders. He's a championship fighter, and that's what we want to.
And he's proven that. Yeah. He's proven that now. Yeah. And also, what was interesting on the show as well was Rhys Pagan's performance against Lewis Scott.
Yeah.
Because obviously Craig massively outpointed him previously, so
I think that was Goliath Pagan, though. I think that was his brother myself. I don't think that was Rhys Pagan. He wasn't the same boy that Craig boxed because he was a monster.
He was a monster, wasn't he? You could see what he said.
So, but yeah, I mean, Craig. if you look at Rhys Pagan, that's a good example though, because Rhys is a very good boxer, as is Craig. And when Craig boxed him, I think Craig, schooled him in terms of boxing ability. I think, in hindsight for Lewis, I don't know. He's got his own camp and his own things, but my opinion is that was perhaps a little bit too soon for Lewis. But again, he's caught in that scenario where
people don't want to fight him either.